I'm no longer defining myself by the seeming individual. All of a sudden, the infinity that I am and the conviction of that infinity makes the movement in consciousness much easier. What's going on, reality hackers? It's Michael. I am back today with another video, and I'm really excited about today's video. Today we're going to be talking about going beyond Neville. Before we get started, if you enjoy the content on the channel, go ahead, like, subscribe, do the dang thing, help us out, we'll help you out. It's a good thing. It's a mutual thing. So I think I have a slight quest as to how awkward I can make these intros, and we'll see which video over the next couple of weeks takes the cake for that. But I'm excited to chat today about our subject of going beyond Neville. Now, here's the thing. You might be watching this video and you just heard of Neville Goddard. You might be watching this video and you've been reading Neville for years, like myself, right? I first read The Power of Awareness back in 2016. And before we dive into any logistics here, I really want to share a little bit about the purpose behind what we're doing today. Ultimately, the purpose behind this video is to take those who are ready, who want really to get to the core of the work of Neville and take it and integrate it as quickly and as efficiently as possible, right? What we're really wanting to do today is take what we've seen over our work at Reality Hacker over the last 7 years, over 125 countries, the most powerful, potent excerpts and principles and concepts from Neville that really do go beyond Neville, right? So there's a couple things that Neville talks about in his books, all the way from his first couple books all the way to up until he died, and a lot of the most important things that Neville says, in my personal opinion, are overlooked, right? Many of us come to Neville because we love the techniques. We love how specific he is. Many of us have a Christian background, like myself. I was a senior pastor, a youth pastor, a young adult pastor, a children's pastor, you name it, right? We love Neville because he reconciles a lot of the Christian scriptures that we really didn't get to fully create or feel like we have a full understanding of. And that's one of the reasons why I love Neville, is because of how he reconciles so many of the scriptural differences that I was feeling in regards to the majority of viewpoints at the time. Now, what we want to talk about today is a couple core concepts that Neville gets into that I feel like, I see Neville teachers all the time, and they're all talking about techniques. They're all talking about step-by-step processes, all that good stuff. That's really important. But here's the thing. What I've learned, what we've learned, right? We have been able to work with hundreds of thousands of people at this point. If you don't understand these core concepts, then none of it's going to make sense, and you're going to go on looking for the next guru because you think that you don't have what you need in order to make this work. And if I were to tell you the one thing that I think that is the most overlooked that Neville says, it is this. How many times have you read The Power of Awareness and you see Neville saying man is all imagination, right? Neville says things like, until you experience yourself to be imagination, the potency with which this works will be much less, right? What Neville is saying there is that ultimately you're not an individual that possesses an imagination that's capable of achieving great things. What's really happening here is that you are imagination thinking you are an individual, but because you are imagination, you are all things experiencing itself as an individual, right? Remember what Rumi says, you are not a drop in the ocean. You are the ocean in a drop, right? You are the totality of all things experiencing itself in the form of a human. And why is this so powerful? Because most of us, we approach these law of attraction techniques, the state akin to sleep, the revision, all these things from the fundamental perspective of an individual. I approach this from this place of I'm an individual leveraging my imagination to do a technique, to do a method in order to get what I want. But what happens when we begin to switch the reference here, understanding that I am imagination? So here's the thing. If I am imagination, my true nature is imagination or consciousness or source, whatever word we want to use there, by definition, that essence is outside of and beyond time, right? It is before time, at the end of time, in time, at any point in time, at every point in time, right? Because of this, when I understand that I am actually consciousness experiencing itself to be a human, I no longer have to internally agree with how time is structured by people who believe themselves to be individuals, or how the relationship between myself and the things around me is dictated according to what other individuals think. What happens here when I begin to really understand that my essence, the essence that is referred to as Michael, is actually the same essence that makes up every other piece of living matter in the universe, that sense of separation begins to cease to exist. That sense of separation between myself and the thing that I want tends to slowly dissolve. And what happens here is that I find myself in a place of unity with what it is that I want. And if you think about the techniques, if you think that everything that you're being taught, it's all about getting you into a higher vibration, because the totality of what you believe to be true about yourself ultimately determines what happens and how things unfold in your life, right? That fundamental self-concept drives everything that you do, how you respond to everything that happens to you, and ultimately how you navigate both contrastual events and very high vibe events, right? What I want to do here is I want to understand the most powerful, most potent piece of information that Neville says, because that allows me to make the techniques not so important. Because a lot of us, we place the value of the power inside of the techniques that we're doing, and the power is not in the techniques. The power is in you, and we want to get to a place where we're no technique, where we don't need technique to manifest, because the truth is, man, you've been manifesting your entire life. You've been manifesting your entire life. You don't need a technique to consciously manifest. You need to know, A, how manifestation works, and B, who you are in relation to your manifestation. If you don't understand who you are in relation to your manifestation, you will always be on this struggle of either these techniques aren't working, I've tried every new method under the sun, because most of the time, if you're trying a technique and you're giving life to that technique as if it is the power and you are not the power, you're approaching this dead wrong. You're actually approaching it backwards, and you're most likely going to perpetuate the very same power struggles you find yourself dealing with now, right? So in this first video of our series of Going Beyond Neville, we want to talk about some of the most potent pieces of information that Neville brings up throughout his literature that is overlooked today. And the most potent piece of literature that Neville brings to the table in all of his books is the fact that humans are all imagination, right? You are all imagination. You are the entirety of Christ experiencing itself to be something other than that. But the truth is, like Paul said, you have died and your life is hidden in Christ. The truth is, you just believe you're real. You believe you have some sort of objectivity in relation to everything around you, but you really don't. And no matter how hard you try to find it, you won't. But the truth is, as long as you're justified in living separate, living, as though you're separate from everything else, you're going to continue to find reasons to suffer and struggle. Because the truth is, when you begin to truly understand that reality does not exist objective from myself, it actually exists projected from myself, right? When I begin to understand, and not the self, but the self that I am, it is projected from. And as I can align with that fundamental concept, all of a sudden, right? Because what does Charles Haanel say? I can only do to the extent that I can be. I can only be to the extent that I am. What I am is determined by what I self-identify as, right? This is literally what Napoleon Hill's mentor said. The degree in which we do and get only exists to the degree in which we already are. And what better way to be than to just be everything? Like the wrong idea here is that you have to do a bunch of stuff in order to get. But the fact is, the doing only comes after consciousness is already there. Right? This is what Neville talks about with his law of least action, right? As if my consciousness is not easily able to get where I need it to go, right? To whatever state I need it to get into in order to create what I want, then the chances are I'm going to have a big struggle in bringing that state into reality. But with the law of least action, right? The least degree of movement in consciousness effortlessly and fully ultimately is where the most power is going to come from. And think about this. How easy would it be for me to move in consciousness somewhere, right? The reason we have a hard time shifting states is because we believe we are the state. We fundamentally identify with emotions as our identity. And so when we move into a new identity, we get scared because we say, well, I'm leaving my ex behind. I'm leaving my depression behind, my anxiety behind, my worry behind in this moment, right? And we identify as our thoughts, as our emotions. And so moving from a state of consciousness is much harder when we are identifying separately. But think about what happens when I'm no longer tied down to or anchored into any of the conditions of human existence. I'm no longer defining myself by the seeming individual. All of a sudden, the infinity that I am and the conviction of that infinity makes the movement in consciousness much easier. And movements in consciousness reproduce themselves in our world. And this is what you need to be focused on. You don't need to be focused on taking a ton of action, although I advise everybody to move, to do. But you need to be focused on movements in consciousness. And the movements that you make in consciousness will be much easier when you understand, as Neville says, that you are all imagination. And here's the thing, Neville, once you get to this point with Neville, and the truth is, even if you're a beginner and you're watching this and you're not, this doesn't make a lot of sense, that's totally okay. You're actually getting like a fast track right now, because I've seen people struggle for years and decades reading these books, reading these techniques, but not making anything happen. We want to get to a place where we're making things happen, okay? So understanding fundamentally that you are not you, objectively you are imagination experiencing itself to be who you think you are, but because you are imagination experiencing itself, you have the freedom and power to choose any state of consciousness in any given moment in full sincerity and full immersion. And as a result, just like apple seeds produce apple trees, the state of consciousness that you are committed to returning to will reproduce itself in your world. Sound fair enough? I think I've packed enough into this first video. We'll bring another video soon on the Beyond Neville series. We're going to continue to dive into the things that ultimately are his most powerful, concepts that mainly go overlooked today. But ultimately, his most powerful concepts are confirmed by teachers and mystics from all over the world that go even deeper into more non-dual teachings and that sort of thing. And we're going to get into that. So if you're ready to go deep, this is the series for you. Turn on the notification bell so when we do this series, when we launch more videos, you'll know, you'll get a notification. You'll be able to watch it immediately. Also, that helps us, right? It helps us grow. And so if you want to go further on this journey, check out the I Am experience in the bio. We developed that specifically for people who are tired of using techniques to discover their power and to create what they want. We've also got free month of the Source app. It's our meditation app in the bio. We've got our RHOS manifesting game journal in the bio. There's so much for you. We have so much to love on you with and support you with. So if you've got any questions, if you want to go deeper, let's go deeper here, right? You can email us. We've got your back. We're here to support you on this journey. If you have any other questions, comments, feedback, I love it. Bring it. Let's grow. Let's go. Okay? Looking forward to talking to you soon.